Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Roland Frazier, and Joe DeSena. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 27 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you could email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Sam Zellner. Sam led a patent development team at AT&T that was responsible for building, managing, and monetizing AT's wireless patent portfolio. He created another program at AT&T that produced over 500 ideas per month. He's an inventor on more than 200 patented inventions. Sam is currently leading a project to create an open source prior art search engine using artificial intelligence to radically improve inventing. It's known as the Patent Quality Through Artificial Intelligence Project, also known as PQAI.
You get no awards for marketing.
PQAI morphs over into that. But yeah, the
Yeah.
PQAI project brings together the latest technologies and the open source community to create a new approach to inventing. The intention is that inventors will no longer waste time and resources pursuing non-patentable ideas. So with that in mind, I'm very pleased to welcome here today Sam Zellner. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, my pleasure. And so you're a degreed engineer, so you don't have a legal background, but somehow you got into the patent field. So let's talk about how you went from being an engineer to really getting into the patent field and being a bit of a patent guru in the areas that you've been in.
Well, Rich, it's just one of these things you go through the experience so many times, sit down with examiners, have them question you about your idea, work with attorneys trying to draft claims, work with them on defining your idea and the scope, that you quickly start understanding the game, as I call it, and how to play the game. And so that brought me here. It just practice, or experience. And that's something I would, encourage all inventors. It's like anything, just get experience with the process, go through it. You'll learn a lot. And you don't necessarily have to go all the way to a patent filing. Just do, as we talked about, prior art searching, thinking about how you structure. A lot of people don't appreciate that patent, it's all about the claims, right? Mm-hmm. The claims are what you own, nothing else. I don't care what you say. You see so many people say, "Oh, I mentioned that in my patent." Well, great, you mentioned it, but in the spec, that's fine. But what did the claims say? The claims say, talk about A, you talk about B. It's not going to make a difference. So,
yep, absolutely. The claims are truly everything. The rest of it still has to be done well, but if it's not in the claims, it's really not in the territory of what you own. But in particular, like you starting out in industry, in engineering, so you found an opportunity to really move over into this other role within corporate to work on the patent portfolio and on developing ideas. So kind of how did that transition happen?
Well, like I said, I had gone through the patent process. I worked with the intellectual property group a lot. I worked with many of the patent attorneys, and I think they recognized that, one, I understood the way in which you need to think about ideas and evaluate ideas. And then also the important piece is when you work with inventors, it's a lot about interpersonal skills and working with people. And, that's something a lot of patent attorneys have realized too, that, working with people is a skill set, and getting their ideas expressed properly and understanding why they came to this conclusion takes a special skill set. And I think they saw when I was working with them that I had that skill set to work with others, because a lot of my patents had co-inventors.
So you thought like an engineer, and you also had the skill set to be able to communicate that and to carry it through to the patents. And so that was recognized, and that's kind of what they created this role for you.
Right. And also the other piece is, let's keep in mind that there's a business component about patents too. Just because you get a patent doesn't mean it's worthwhile, as you know, Rich. And so you need to understand the marketing business aspects to what you're going to patent.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's where my background. I got an MBA from the University of Chicago. That was very helpful, and I think another aspect that helped me fit into that job.
Yes, absolutely. I didn't say that. So you're a degreed engineer, but you also have an MBA, and so it kind of created a bit of a combination there of the guy who understands the innovation, the technology, but also the one who has his attention on marketing and on like the end game for this patent in the business world. That's right. Yeah,
that's right. It's really, really important.
Awesome. And you've worked on so many interesting things throughout your career. And like, one of the things that you did was help create this portfolio of patents for AT&T on their wireless technology, which it's kind of interesting. I mean, that kind of took place during my career and a little bit before. I mean, when I was in law school and I was working at a large IP firm, like they were working on wireless technology, and I just recognized just how that exploded in value from the 90s and on. It was like,
it's interesting. And one of the areas I was very active in patenting was location services. And the ironic thing is, and again, the interesting piece I like and dislike about innovation is, after the fact, it's always obvious. You talk to anybody, it's obvious, right? And so at the time, we were looking at location services because of 911. There's a big issue with 911. People would call on their cell phone, I need the police right away. Where are you? I don't know. I'm just using my cell phone. I don't know. And so obviously the police were very frustrated with, people calling were very frustrated. So they had made a mandate that the cellular companies would provide location-based technology. Well, at the time, it was not obvious to the cellular companies that location-based services would be valuable. And I know it sounds like, what do you mean? They should have known. No, at the time, it was like, why do we have to do this? This is going to cost us a lot of money. What would you use it for? And
right. So, how often do you need to locate a lost person on a mountainside? We'll use triangulation for that, right?
Right. It's So it was interesting, but that's just one example of a lot of things that when you look back, you say it was obvious, but at the time, it's not obvious. I mean, browsers on cell phones. So I worked on the standards with browser on cell phone, and again, not obvious. We didn't have much power in the cell phones. The data rates were very slow. Why would anybody want a browser on a cell phone? And by the way, the internet's not exactly a big hopping thing. And so.
Right. Well, that kind of reminds me of Steve Jobs' address when he introduced the iPhone. Where he said, "I've got this great phone, and we're also introducing a great iPod today, a music player, and we're also introducing a web browsing device." Right. And so and then, of course, he put it all together. So maybe after that address, it was obvious to have web browsing. But before that, people weren't thinking of that. It was, if anything, they were thinking of other types of data access as really a novelty and not something that would become a staple of use of our phones after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I always say it's a challenging position for inventors. Because what you're usually doing as you invent is you're eliminating some assumption set. You're eliminating the assumption set that data rates are slow. You're eliminating the assumption set that it's very costly to do data. You're eliminating the assumption set the battery life, is a problem. So you're limiting. And so for most people, they listen to what you say and they go, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. So it's a challenging world, I think, for inventors. If you're expecting love when you throw out your idea, in most cases, it's not going to be there because people won't understand. They're like, no, it's not possible.
Right. Right. And in a sense, you have to find the missing link, because it's like, on the one hand, the invention has to be not obvious, which means like not the natural progression that things are going. That's kind of how I think of it. Right.
Right.
But at the same time, it's got to be something which people will naturally want, because it is kind of like the natural way that the demand is going. Right. So you have to kind of find that missing link where something is innovative that people would not have readily thought of it. It's not obvious, but at the same time, it is the solution that they've been looking for.
Right. Right. It's a tricky balancing act, and just something that takes practice. And you start realizing, how do I need to think about this? Like I said, I find myself just thinking two things. One, looking at what other people are doing, so you get a notion of how other people have thought about the problem. You got to start with a problem, and then think about what things could change and what could change reasonably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's things you think are going to change, and guess what? It doesn't ever change. So it's
Exactly. Which kind of leads us into the project that you're working on now. But essentially, before we get to the project itself, let's look at the challenge that led to the project. Let's talk about the kind of like the difficulty that inventors face with verifying that their ideas are patentable and validating their ideas. So let's talk about that challenge.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. You have sort of a spectrum here. You have some inventors who say, yeah, I'm not going to look. I don't want to know. But as you know, as a patent attorney, we have to look. So, if the patent attorney doesn't look, the examiner will look. And so you can't get around it. But some inventors think, I know it's got to be novel, and so I'm not going to look. Some inventors, it was just a book, a patent strategy, where they expressed, the author there expressed that that some inventors don't want to be influenced by other inventors and their ideas, which again, I don't understand the logic behind that, because the patent system was built on building upon other people's understandings.
Right.
So that's still odd. And then, unfortunately, and I think it's majority of cases, is most inventors find it's too time consuming. And even the patent office, if you look at the EPO and you even look at the US Patent Office, and when they say you should do a patent search, they sort of admit that this is going to be too time consuming and too hard. The EPO says, if you had an idea for a mousetrap and you look mousetrap up on a Boolean search engine, you might get 2 million hits. Right. And they say that's too many. And then they say, maybe you should do rodent trap, and rodent trap gets you 20,000 hits, which is too many. And right. They try and help you narrow it down, but still, in the end, they say, this is very hard, and you should get a professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one of the challenges there is word searching in general is flawed, because people can use different terminology. Like you said, it could be a mousetrap, or it could be a rodent capturing device. Right. And then your search for mousetrap won't find it if it was described as a rodent capturing device. So, a lot of times what people look towards is classification searching, so that you can capture or you can find related patents, even if different terminology was used. And then presumably you check all the classifications and all the classifications. But yeah, it's burdensome to effectively search other ideas. And part of the downside, or part of the end result, is that you might end up pursuing non-patentable ideas. Right.
That's a real problem, Rich.
Yeah.
You have people spending hours and hours of their time working on their idea, and potentially spending thousands of dollars, and find out that they can't protect it. It existed already, and that's really when I was working with inventors, and even myself, like I said, that's the thing that I found very frustrating. Is nothing more annoying than thinking you have a novel idea and then going to somebody and they say, no, it's not novel. Look, it's right here. And everybody takes pride, and so that's what bothered me, and that's what motivated me to say, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way in which there would be a common tool out there that people could use. There could be more tools, of course, but at least one common tool that people get some level of confidence before they go and spend time on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what led you to this project that you're working on now,
right.
PQAI. So tell me a bit about that.
So we actually started off with it, and this is classic, right? We started off at AT&T. We were planning to do it for ourselves, right, for AT&T. And then we realized that why should we be building something that the rest of the world has as a problem too? And it would benefit AT&T from a standpoint of, we have better quality patents out there because they've been searched much more efficiently. So then we said, well, we've seen this open source model and we've seen a lot of things work very well. Obviously, Linux is a great example of open source where it's worked very well. And we said, why not take that approach with PQAI? And so that's why we went that way. I retired at the end of 2019. And so I told them I would be very interested. I was working for the Georgia IP Alliance at the time as a board member. And I said, let me take this on as a nonprofit in this realm and see if we can move this forward.
Got it. Okay. And so then tell me about the progression of the project, like how like the progress you've made, like what the team looks like, et cetera.
Sure. So first of all, I should say that we talked to some major players about this, and they were like, this is because they sort of felt like it was too hard. One of the things they thought was too hard, because I wanted to really change, not just a minor change, really major change. And so one of the things is not to get technical here, but as you know, there's anticipated 102 type of rejection in the US patent system where one document has your whole idea. And then you have the obviousness rejection, or 103 rejection, where the examiner combines multiple documents to get your idea. And the presumption is it was obvious to bring these ideas together.
Right.
So I wanted to do a search engine that would not only do 102, but do 103, because nobody does 103. And when you look at the number of office actions that contain 102 rejections, which is what everybody does, that's around 20%. But the number that contain 103 rejections is at 80%. So that's a huge piece. And most inventors don't even know it exists. They don't find out about it until they go and the examiner gives them a rejection. So I wanted to have something that did both 102 and 103. So that a number of players in the industry were sort of like, that's too hard, we can't do it. And so they sort of bowed out. But we do have the Georgia IP Alliance and a number of members there were interested. We obviously had AT&T behind us. We got a number of other companies with experience, Gravy Services, IP analytics company based in India is very good, and they've been very active in helping us put together the system. And so now where we came is we've launched the website, the project Pqi.ai website, and so now people can actually use the beta engine out there to do searches, and we've been improving it ever since. And I'm excited to say, most recently, we've been going around to different inventor associations, and we just got the support of the International Federation of Inventors Associations, and I think that's a big step. And then we're going to be going to all the chapters, the individual country chapters, and getting them oriented on PQAI. So that's really exciting. Another component we just launched is the Pqi Report. And the idea here is that inventors can run their searches, identify documents that are relevant to their idea, and create a report that then they can give to their patent attorney, which will help start that dialogue. Or they can give it to maybe venture capitalists that's looking, they're looking for funding, might ask, well, are you sure this idea is novel? And this gives them at least one sense of how you've done some fairly thorough checking on the idea.
Got it. And so, like, what's the state of readiness now of the system?
I'd like to think we've tested our 102 engine against many of the other common 102 engines, and we think our engine beats, or at least is competitive with most of the engines out there. And again, we're a free engine that anybody can use. And like I said, we're doing 103. I'm not satisfied with what it's doing so far, But again, we're the only search engine out there that does 103 searches today.
Interesting. And so how would people find the search engine?
So if you go to projectpq.ai, that's the website, and there's a link to the search engine there.
Very interesting. And that's fascinating. So now, other than, so you've retired from AT&T, you're working on this project. So you've got to be up to some other cool things.
I am, this IP stuff is exciting stuff. I really find it very, very exciting. And so one of the other things I noticed in my tenure at AT&T and at other places, I saw that there isn't a good system out there capturing innovations from employees and corporations. It's interesting. The systems out there just don't appreciate the inventors, how busy they are, how active they are. Most of the best inventors are just being pulled in lots of different directions. And so they don't have a lot of time. And a lot of the systems are very clunky in the way in which they capture, they expect the inventors to put their ideas in. And so what we've done is said, let's bring the system to the inventors. We integrate in with collaboration tools. We make it much simpler in which to process the disclosures. We keep everybody informed on what's going on, so it's just a much better experience for everybody involved. And we already have a couple of large corporate customers using the system, and the inventors are very excited about it.
Yeah, and I think you were saying you're expanding to universities as well.
We are now looking at expanding university. We think there's a very big opportunity there to link into students, give more people experience with innovation. Yeah,
I mean, talk about people that are busy, but yet creating lots of great ideas. So it seems like a great way to juxtapose what you have into their workflow so that you can capture some of those ideas that might not otherwise get captured.
And the other piece we want to do is we want to give people more experience with innovating. Yeah. Because when you think about it, when you think of a good innovator, what do they have? They have education, so they have the knowledge, so they can come up with new ideas and new technologies. They have a background. This is where diversity, we really, sadly, have been really remiss in including everybody in the patent process. As we already know, there's a lot of studies been done that women are not representative and minorities aren't representative. And I think part of that is that we're missing out on those backgrounds, because we know that's what helps innovation is people have different backgrounds. They think differently, and that's what innovation is about. And then finally, the third component that makes a good innovator is experience. It's a skill that everybody needs to have. And we're hoping that by doing this, working with universities, we're going to get more people experience with innovation. Yeah, I mean, I often tell people that part of the value of going through the process is the experience of the process. It's where, I mean, a lot of inventors think of like, this invention that I've created is going to be a big hit. Well, maybe not. I mean, most of the time when people have that success, it's not with their first idea, it's with their second or their third. But it was the experience of going through the first and what that experience was like that makes them then able to go through the process with the second, with the third. So you're so right, Rich. That's exactly it. I tell inventors, you're going to have a lot of ideas. It's not just one idea. I think so many inventors say, this is the only idea I've ever come up with. Right. Absolutely not. You'll come up with lots of ideas. Yeah. And you actually come up with more as you go through and experience the process. You learn from it, and you become a better inventor. So exactly. You're absolutely right, Rich. That's really good advice. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for everything that you've shared here about what you've been doing and about things that would help inventors to have a great experience and not pursue non-patentable ideas. And if people want to learn more about you and get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so? I'd say just look me up on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So just, Sam Zellner at LinkedIn there. You'll find me easily enough. And the website where you can find PQAI is projectpq.ai. That's correct. Right. And InspireIP.com is my other venture that we're working with corporations on. Awesome. And we're still more in candidly, we're still in more of the quiet stage there, so there isn't a lot on the website. We'll be expanding it soon, but still a little quiet.
Sounds great. So once again, Sam, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all of your knowledge on this. And I appreciate what you've been doing to create this free tool for inventors to really serve innovators, hopefully for generations to come. I
hope it makes a difference, and in the future, sometime we'll have everybody using the tool to check ideas. My thought is that we'll be in a bar and you'll come up with an idea, and I'll say, "Hey, check that on your phone with PQAI. See if that's really novel. It sounds pretty cool." And that's what people do.
That sounds amazing.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.